Greece isn't just famous for its temples, islands, and ancient myths. It's also home to some of the strangest birds you'll ever see. Imagine standing on a sun-drenched island in the Aegean and spotting a bird painted like a rainbow, or hiking the rocky cliffs of Migratory while an owl with wings nearly 2 meters wide stares back at you. In this journey, we'll explore 20 strange bird species you won't believe exist in Greece, from the dazzling European bee-eater with colors that look unreal, to the Eurasian hoopoe with its spiky crown straight out of a rock concert, to the rock partridge, the national bird of Greece itself. You'll meet clever jays that steal acorns, shrikes that hang their prey like medieval hunters, and finally witness the breathtaking starling murmurations that move like living clouds across the sky. Some of these species are beautiful, some are bizarre, and some are downright shocking. But all of them prove that Greece is more than history. It's alive with wild wings. Before we dive in, take a guess in the comments. Which bird do you think will be the strangest of all? Let's find out together. Have you ever seen a bird so colorful that it looks like it escaped from a painter's palette? That's the European bee-eater, and in Greece, it's often the first bird that makes visitors stop, stare, and whisper, "Wait, is that even real?" Now here's the crazy part. This bird isn't just a pretty face, it lives on a razor's edge. Why? Because its favorite food, the thing it literally cannot resist, is stinging insects. Bees, wasps, hornets. Most of us run the other way, right? But the bee-eater charges straight in. If it miscalculates, that stinger could mean death. That's high stakes for a snack. Picture this, a clear summer morning along the Aegean coast. The air is buzzing with bees from nearby wildflowers. Suddenly, flash of turquoise, chestnut, and gold. A bee-eater swoops in like a fighter jet, snatches a bee midair, and lands on a branch. But it doesn't just gulp it down, oh no. It slams the insect against the branch, again and again, like it's tenderizing a steak. Why? To crush the venom sac and scrape out the stinger. Only then does it swallow its prize, smooth and safe. Here's a fun fact. One bee-eater can eat up to 250 bees a day. Farmers in Greece actually love them because they help control wasp and hornet populations near vineyards and olive groves. In a way, this bird is both an artist in the sky and a pest control service on wings. But there's another twist. Bee-eaters are also expert engineers. They dig long tunnels into sandy riverbanks, sometimes up to 3 feet deep, to nest. Whole colonies will line a cliffside, filling the air with their rolling prup-prup calls. If you ever hear that sound echoing across a Greek valley, you'll know a bee-eater colony is nearby. So next time you swat a wasp at a picnic, remember, in Greece, there's a bird that turns your nightmare insect into lunch. And speaking of wild headgear, if you think the bee-eater's colors are outrageous, wait until you meet the next bird with a spiky crown that looks straight out of a rock concert. What bird looks like it's wearing a mohawk to a rock concert and sounds like it's calling its own name? Meet the Eurasian Hoopoe, one of Greece's strangest and most unforgettable birds. Now here's the stakes. If you heard that oop, oop, oop echoing across a Greek meadow and didn't know better, you might think it was some kind of ancient instrument being played in the ruins. But no, it's this bird strutting around like it owns the place, and in Greek mythology, it actually did. The hoopoe appears in Aristophanes' comedy, The Birds, as a messenger between humans and gods. That's how legendary it is. Picture the scene. A hot afternoon in rural Greece. Olive trees cast patchy shade on rocky soil. Suddenly, whoosh! A cinnamon-colored bird with bold black and white wings flutters down. Then it raises that crazy crown of orange feathers, tipped in black, like a tiny fan snapping open. It looks part bird, part punk rocker, and completely unforgettable. Here's the fun fact. Hoopoes aren't just flashy, they're also, well, a little smelly. The females and chicks produce a foul odor from their uropygial gland, sometimes called liquid defense. Scientists think it helps ward off predators and even keeps parasites away. So yes, the hoopoe invented its own natural bug spray. Talk about multitasking. And wait, there's more. Hoopoes are amazing diggers. They probe the ground with their long, curved bills, flipping over leaves and poking into the soil to pull out beetles, crickets, even the occasional lizard. If you watch one up close, it's like a living metal detector that always finds treasure. Culturally, this bird has been loved, feared, and even worshipped. Across Europe and Asia, the hoopoe often symbolized virtue, loyalty, or sometimes mischief. But in Greece, spotting one in spring is considered a lucky sign that warm days are truly here. So between its unmistakable call, its rock star hairstyle, and its quirky habits, the hoopoe might just be the most iconic bird in the Greek countryside. But don't relax yet, because next up is the national bird of Greece itself. Strong, tough, and found only here. Can you guess which one it is? What bird could possibly earn the title of National Bird of Greece in a land overflowing with myths, gods, and legends? Not an eagle, not a swan, but a chunky ground-dwelling game bird called the rock partridge. At first glance, it doesn't look like much, just a plump bird with striped sides, red beak, and strong legs. But here's the stakes. Without its camouflage and toughness, this species would have disappeared long ago from Greece's rocky slopes and craggy hillsides. Life out here is harsh. Burning summers, cold mountain winds, and predators on every ridge. Surviving takes grit. Now imagine the scene. You're hiking a trail in the rugged Pindus Mountains. The air is thin, the rocks crunch underfoot. Suddenly, flutter, flutter! A family of rock partridges bursts out from the shrubs at lightning speed, running uphill like tiny sprinters. They don't soar gracefully. Instead, they explode into short, loud flights before ducking back into cover. It's pure chaos, but that's how they avoid hawks and foxes. Here's a fun fact. The rock partridge is closely tied to Greek culture. Its image appears in folk songs, hunting traditions, and even cuisine. In ancient times, partridges symbolized fertility and resilience. Today, conservationists see it as a symbol of Greece's wild landscapes, an endemic species found nowhere else in such numbers. And get this, males put on a surprising show in spring. They strut around, call loudly with a chuckling ka-ka-ka-ka, and chase rivals with all the determination of a miniature gladiator. For a bird that barely weighs a pound, it's got the heart of a lion. So while it may not be as glamorous as a peacock or as fearsome as an owl, the rock partridge is uniquely Greek, tough, scrappy, and proud of its homeland. But after these rugged mountain dwellers, let's soften the mood with something small, friendly, and beloved in gardens across Europe. Coming up next, a tiny bird with a bright red chest that sings even in the dead of winter. Have you ever met a bird so small, yet so bold, that it sings its heart out in the middle of winter? That's the European robin, and in Greece, this little red-breasted bird is a quiet star of gardens, parks, and woodlands. Here's the stakes. For many animals, winter means silence and survival mode. But not the robin. If it stops singing, it would lose its territory, its food, and maybe even its mate. That tiny song is its lifeline. Picture this. It's a frosty morning in a Greek village. Olive trees shimmer with dew. The streets are still. And then, clear, bright notes cut through the cold. A robin, no bigger than a tennis ball, perches proudly on a fence post, chest glowing red-orange against the pale light. It looks delicate, but that song is a declaration. This is my home. Stay away. Here's a fun fact. Robins are fiercely territorial. Despite their cute appearance, they'll chase off rivals twice their size. And in folklore, they're full of symbolism, linked to Christmas in Northern Europe. But in Greece, they're a gentle reminder of endurance. People used to say that if a robin sang in your garden, good fortune would follow. Even their migration tells a story. Many robins from colder parts of Europe fly south and spend winters in Greece. That means the cheerful little bird you hear in January may have traveled hundreds of miles just to sing for you. So while it may not be as flashy as a bee-eater or as fierce as a partridge, the European robin wins hearts with its bravery and its song. And speaking of travel, our next bird takes migration to a whole new level. It's a sleek flyer that has inspired poems, myths, and even the change of seasons in Greece. Get ready to meet the barn swallow. What bird could possibly be so loved that the very sight of it signals the arrival of spring in Greece? It's the sleek, graceful barn swallow, with its forked tail and shimmering blue back. An international traveler that somehow feels like a local everywhere it goes. Here's the stakes. For thousands of years, people across Europe watched anxiously for the first swallows to return. If they didn't appear, it meant crops could fail or storms might linger. In Greece, their absence would be unthinkable. The whole rhythm of rural life depends on their return each March. Picture the scene. The sun rises over whitewashed villages on the Aegean coast. Suddenly, the air fills with swift, darting shapes. Swallows zigzag across the sky, snapping up insects mid-flight with the precision of fighter pilots. Children run outside, pointing upward. Families smile. The season has officially changed, not because of the calendar, but because the swallows said so. Here's a fun fact. Barn swallows migrate an incredible 6,000 miles each year, traveling from Africa to Greece and back again. They follow ancient routes across deserts, seas, and mountains, guided by instincts that scientists still don't fully understand. And they're not just travelers, they're builders too. With mud and straw, they craft perfect cup-shaped nests, often tucked under the eaves of houses or even inside barns, living side by side with people. And the cultural connection runs deep. In Greek folklore, the return of the swallow is celebrated on March 1st with songs called Chelidonisma, where children carry little wooden swallows door to door, singing for good fortune. It's not just a bird, it's a living calendar, a symbol of hope, renewal, and family. So while the barn swallow may look delicate as it skims over fields and rivers, it carries the weight of centuries of tradition and the promise of warmer days. But after this joyful messenger of spring, let's step back into the everyday gardens of Greece, where another bird, small but clever, has learned how to outsmart just about everyone. Up next, the great tit. What bird could possibly be so common in Greek gardens, yet secretly smart enough to outwit scientists, predators, and even people? Meet the great tit, a small, cheerful bird with a big brain and an even bigger personality. Here's the stakes. If the great tit weren't so clever, it wouldn't survive in such diverse habitats, from city parks in Athens to mountain forests in the Peloponnese. It faces predators, harsh winters, and food shortages, but instead of giving up, it adapts. Every single year. Picture the scene, a sunny morning in a Greek village. A tiny yellow and black bird hops onto a window ledge, tilts its head, and pecks at a milk bottle cap until it pops open. This isn't imagination, it's history. In the mid-20th century, great tits across Europe figured out how to pierce foil milk caps to drink the cream inside. The behavior spread like wildfire, proving these little birds can actually learn from one another. Fun fact, their song is as versatile as their minds. A male great tit can sing over 40 different phrases, adjusting its tune depending on rivals or mates nearby. Think of it as the bird equivalent of a stand-up comic with endless material. And in Greece, their calls fill the air year-round, even when other birds go quiet. But here's where it gets even more fascinating. Scientists discovered that great tits adjust their nesting times depending on climate. Warmer springs, they breed earlier, syncing perfectly with the boom of caterpillars that feed their chicks. In other words, these tiny birds run on a natural smart calendar that would impress even the most advanced planner app. So while the great tit may look like just another garden bird, it's actually one of the cleverest survivors in Greece. Small in size, huge in brain power. And speaking of brains, what if I told you the next bird not only remembers hundreds of food stashes, but also has a flashy blue crest and a reputation as a forest trickster? Up next, the Eurasian jay. What bird could possibly be both a master thief and a forest gardener at the same time? That's the Eurasian jay, and in Greece, it's one of the most colorful, clever, and mischievous birds you'll ever meet. Here's the stakes. Without the jay, many of Greece's oak forests might not even exist. Why? Because this bird's bad habit of stealing and hoarding acorns accidentally turns it into one of nature's best tree planters. No jay, no forest. Picture this, a crisp autumn day in northern Greece. A jay flits through the oaks, its blue and black wing patches flashing like jewels. It stuffs an acorn in its throat pouch, then another, and then disappears into the woods. Instead of eating them all, it buries hundreds in secret caches like a feathered pirate hiding treasure. The twist? The jay forgets about many of them, and months later, voila, baby oak trees sprout. Talk about unintentional gardening. Here's a fun fact. Eurasian jays can remember thousands of hiding spots using visual landmarks like rocks or tree stumps as mental maps. They even adjust their caching behavior if other birds are watching, moving acorns multiple times so thieves can't steal them. It's like watching a tiny feathery con artist at work. And they're not just clever with food. Jays are also great mimics. In Greece, they've been known to imitate the calls of hawks and buzzards to scare other birds away from feeding spots. Imagine a bird yelling, "Predator incoming," just to grab a snack for itself. Culturally, the jay often shows up in Greek folklore as a trickster, a symbol of both intelligence and mischief. Farmers may grumble when they raid orchards, but deep down, everyone knows the jay is part of the forest's future. So the next time you see flashes of electric blue darting through Greek woodlands, remember, you're looking at a bird that can trick, mimic, steal, and plant trees, all before lunchtime. And speaking of color and song, up next is a little bird with a red face and a golden voice. Meet the enchanting European goldfinch. What bird could possibly combine the voice of a tiny opera singer with the look of a jewel? That's the European goldfinch, one of the most charming little songbirds you'll find in Greece. Here's the stakes. In the wild, survival isn't just about strength, it's also about charm. The goldfinch's dazzling red face and golden wing bars aren't just for show, they help attract mates and hold territory. Without its song and sparkle, this bird would quickly lose its place in the crowded world of small songbirds. Now picture the scene. A warm spring morning in the Greek countryside. The air is alive with wildflowers and buzzing bees. Perched on a thistle, a goldfinch leans forward, bright red mask glowing in the sun. Then it begins to sing, soft trills, sweet notes, and tumbling phrases that sound like liquid gold. Farmers pause in their work just to listen. In fact, goldfinches were once so admired for their voice that people kept them as cage birds for centuries. Thankfully today, they're protected, so you'll hear them free in the fields and gardens of Greece. Fun fact, goldfinches have a very particular diet. They specialize in pulling tiny seeds from thistles and teasels, using their slender bills like precision tools. Where most birds see a spiky weed, the goldfinch sees a five-star buffet. This feeding behavior has even given the bird its scientific name, carduelis, linked to thistles. And in Greek folklore, the goldfinch symbolizes joy and good luck. Spotting one in your garden was said to bring happiness, and hearing its song could brighten even the darkest day. So, whether it's flashing its golden wings in flight or filling the air with its rolling song, the European goldfinch proves that sometimes the smallest birds bring the biggest beauty. But don't be fooled by all this sweetness. Coming up next is a bird that's darker, tougher, and surprisingly bold. The fearless little black redstart. What bird dares to live in rocky cliffs, ruined castles, and even busy city streets, always with a fiery flash in its tail? That's the black redstart, a little bird with a lot of attitude. Here's the stakes. If the black redstart weren't bold, it wouldn't survive. Unlike other delicate songbirds that hide deep in the forest, this species thrives in some of the harshest, noisiest places, from crumbling stone villages in the Greek mountains to construction sites in Athens. It's learned to make a home where others can't. Picture the scene, early morning in Migratory, Greece. Monasteries cling to towering rock pillars, the air echoing with bells. Suddenly, a small dark bird darts onto a ledge, its tail flashing bright orange-red like a spark of fire against the stone. It flicks its tail nervously, sings a sharp metallic song, and then vanishes into a crack in the wall. This isn't just a bird, it's a survivor in a concrete and rock jungle. Fun fact, male black redstarts may look dark and moody, but their tails are a neon warning signal. When they flick them rapidly, it's both a message to rivals, back off, and a signal to predators. I see you, don't even try. Scientists think this tail-flicking behavior actually reduces attacks by making the bird look alert and harder to ambush. Clever for such a small package. And despite their size, they're long-distance travelers. Many black redstarts migrate from northern Europe to winter in Greece, filling towns and villages with their sharp calls during the colder months. Farmers once considered them signs of resilience, little embers glowing against the gray of winter. So while the black redstart may not wear the dazzling colors of a bee-eater or goldfinch, it wins admiration by being tough, scrappy, and unafraid of a challenge. But toughness comes in many forms, and the next bird takes it to a whole new level. It's a feathered assassin known as the butcher bird, and it has one of the strangest hunting habits in all of Greece. Get ready for the red-backed shrike. What kind of bird earns the nickname butcher bird? Meet the red-backed shrike, a small, innocent-looking songbird in Greece that hides one of the strangest and most shocking behaviors in the bird world. Here's the stakes. This bird doesn't just eat insects, it hunts them like a predator. Without its unusual hunting strategy, it wouldn't stand a chance against the fast, armored bugs it loves. Its survival depends on a method that looks more like medieval torture than bird behavior. Now picture this, a sunny meadow on the Greek mainland. A shrike perches quietly on a thorn bush, masked like a little bandit with its black eye stripe. Suddenly, it dives, snatches a beetle, and returns to its perch. But instead of swallowing it, the shrike impales the insect onto a sharp thorn. Sometimes it does this with lizards, frogs, even small birds. The thorn becomes a pantry, a gruesome kebab skewer, where food is stored for later. It's nature's version of a horror movie. Fun fact, scientists think this gruesome habit is actually genius. By skewering prey, the shrike can safely pull off stingers from wasps or store extra food when hunting is good. In fact, shrikes are known to build whole larders on thorny bushes, a sort of outdoor fridge in the wild. And if you walk through Greek countryside in summer, you might stumble upon these strange little pantries without even knowing it. Despite their dark side, red-backed shrikes are also dedicated parents. Both males and females fiercely guard their nestlings, often attacking much larger birds if they get too close. That's bravery you wouldn't expect from such a small creature. So the shrike may look like just another sweet garden bird, but don't be fooled. It's a feathered assassin with a taste for drama. And speaking of clever tricksters, our next bird may not be as violent, but it's equally famous in folklore for its brains, beauty, and mischievous personality. Up next, the Eurasian magpie. What bird is so clever and mischievous that people once believed it could steal your jewelry right off the table? That's the Eurasian magpie, a black and white trickster that has lived side by side with humans in Greece for centuries. Here's the stakes. In a land filled with predators and scavengers, survival often depends on brains, not brawn. The magpie's intelligence gives it an edge. Without it, this bird would just be another crow in the crowd. Picture the scene. A Greek village square on a lazy summer afternoon. Chickens peck the dust, kids play in the shade, and suddenly, caw. A magpie swoops in, lands on a fence, and begins eyeing everything shiny. A spoon, a bottle cap, maybe even grandma's earrings. Whether or not magpies truly hoard shiny objects, the legend has stuck for centuries, and it fits their curious, nosy personality perfectly. Fun fact, magpies are one of the few non-human animals that can recognize themselves in a mirror test. That means they understand, at least a little, the concept of self, a sign of advanced intelligence usually reserved for dolphins, elephants, and great apes. Not bad for a bird with a reputation as a village thief. In Greece, magpies are a common sight across farmland and open woodlands, their long tails flashing iridescent green and blue in the sun. Farmers have a love-hate relationship with them. Magpies raid crops and nests, but they also eat pests. In folklore, they're often portrayed as chatterboxes and tricksters, sometimes even messengers between the human and spirit worlds. And get this, magpies live in complex social groups and even hold what looks like funerals. When one of their own dies, gathering silently around the body. It's eerie, but it shows how emotionally complex these birds are. So the Eurasian magpie is more than just black and white feathers. It's brains, beauty, and a little bit of mischief rolled into one. But if the magpie is the country trickster, the next bird is the city companion, loud, tough, and always hanging around people. Coming up, the hooded crow. What bird wears a permanent gray hoodie, struts through city streets like it owns them, and still manages to outsmart just about everyone? That's the hooded crow, one of Greece's most familiar and surprisingly clever city birds. Here's the stakes. Living in a crowded world with humans is no easy job. Food is scarce, traffic is dangerous, and predators lurk. Without sharp wits and flexibility, the hooded crow wouldn't survive. But it does more than survive, it thrives. Picture the scene. Athens on a busy morning. Tourists sip coffee by the Acropolis, and pigeons scatter across the square. Then a gray and black crow swoops down, grabs half a sandwich from an unattended plate, and hops off like a thief who knows exactly what he's doing. A second later, it dunks the bread in a fountain to soften it before eating. Proof that this hoodie isn't just street smart, it's genius. Fun fact, hooded crows are tool users. They've been seen dropping nuts on roads for cars to crack, then waiting patiently for the light to turn red so they can collect the prize. In Greece, fishermen tell stories of crows stealing bait right off their hooks, and scientists have documented their ability to solve multi-step puzzles that stump many mammals. Despite their bad boy image, these crows are also loyal. They pair for life, raise their chicks together, and fiercely defend their family territory. Watch closely, and you'll see them perched on rooftops or streetlights, keeping an eye on their patch of the city like self-appointed landlords. In folklore, the hooded crow was once linked to omens and mischief, but today it's just as likely to be your noisy neighbor, calling out with that raspy caw-caw echoing through Greek towns. So next time you're in Greece and see a bird in a gray hoodie raiding a cafe or strutting down a sidewalk, don't be surprised. That's just the hooded crow, living its best life among humans. And speaking of familiar neighbors, the next bird is probably the most common of them all, tiny, chirping, and closer to our homes than any other. Up next, the house sparrow. What bird has lived alongside humans for so long that it feels less like wildlife and more like an old neighbor? That's the house sparrow, one of the most familiar and underestimated birds in Greece. Here's the stakes. While it seems common and ordinary, the house sparrow depends entirely on people. Without villages, farms, and cities, its numbers would collapse. And recently, in parts of Europe, sparrows have actually declined, reminding us that even the most familiar bird can vanish if we're not careful. Picture the scene. A Greek taverna at midday. Plates of souvlaki and bread sit on the table, and suddenly, flutter, chirp. A tiny brown and gray bird lands nearby, cocking its head. It hops closer, eyeing a crumb, then snatches it with lightning speed before darting off under a chair. The customers laugh. It's a routine as old as the village itself. Fun fact, house sparrows are world travelers. Originally native to the Middle East and Europe, they've spread with humans to nearly every continent. They're also incredibly adaptable, building nests in roof tiles, drain pipes, street signs, and just about any nook they can find. In Greece, sparrows often raise multiple broods each year, keeping villages filled with cheerful chirping. Despite their modest looks, sparrows are tough. They thrive in noisy cities, dusty farmlands, and bustling ports. They also play an ecological role by eating insects and helping control pests around human settlements. In Greek folklore, sparrows are symbols of community and resilience, tiny reminders that even small creatures have big importance. And here's a twist. Male sparrows flash a dark bib on their chest, and the bigger the bib, the more dominant the male. It's like a built-in status badge, proving that even in sparrow society, fashion matters. So while you might overlook them at first, house sparrows are living proof that sometimes the most ordinary neighbors have the most extraordinary survival stories. But after this chirping city companion, let's turn to a slimmer, sleeker bird, a tail wagger that dances through Greek fields and rivers. Up next, the graceful white wagtail. What bird can you spot by its constant dance, wagging its tail up and down as if it's keeping rhythm to a secret beat? That's the white wagtail, a graceful little bird that brings movement and charm to Greece's fields, riversides, and even city streets. Here's the stakes. For a small bird living on the ground, danger is everywhere. Cats, hawks, even cars. Without its vigilance and quick reflexes, the wagtail wouldn't stand a chance. That constant tail wagging, some scientists believe it's a signal to predators that says, "I see you, don't even try." A simple dance that may save its life. Picture this. It's late afternoon in a Greek village square. Children kick a soccer ball, old men sip coffee under olive trees, and across the cobblestones a tiny black and white bird trots lightly, wagging its tail with every step. Then in a burst of energy, it darts into the air to snatch a mosquito, lands gracefully, and keeps on bobbing. It's like a ballerina crossed with a street performer. Fun fact, white wagtails are expert insect hunters. They love open spaces, riverbanks, fields, even parking lots, where they chase flies and gnats with incredible agility. Farmers appreciate them for their appetite, while travelers often notice them darting between ferry docks and fishing boats along the Aegean. And here's another twist. Wagtails are long-distance migrants. The birds you see in Greece during winter may have flown thousands of miles from northern Europe, escaping the cold to enjoy Mediterranean sunshine. They're tiny globetrotters, bringing life to Greek landscapes when many other birds have gone quiet. In folklore, the wagtail's bobbing dance was sometimes seen as a symbol of joy or restlessness, always moving, never still. And once you've noticed it, you'll never look at this little bird the same way again. So while it may not be flashy like a bee-eater or fierce like a shrike, the white wagtail wins hearts with its grace, energy, and playful spirit. And after this light-footed dancer, it's time to meet a heavier character, the wood pigeon, a larger, calmer bird that balances the cast of Greece's everyday species. What bird looks like a supersized city pigeon, but actually lives a double life as one of the most important woodland birds in Greece? That's the wood pigeon, a hefty, graceful species that's much more than its common cousin. Here's the stakes. In a land where food supplies can shift with the seasons, being able to eat almost anything is key. Without its adaptability, the wood pigeon wouldn't dominate Greek skies the way it does today. Picture this, a quiet forest edge in northern Greece. A sudden thunderous whir of wings breaks the silence as a huge gray bird bursts out of the trees. Its white neck patch flashes in the sun, and its broad wings carry it across the valley with surprising elegance. Moments later, you hear its deep, rolling call, hoo 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 hoo, echoing like a low drum beat through the pines. Fun fact, the wood pigeon is Europe's largest pigeon, weighing up to half a kilo, more than double a city pigeon. It feeds on seeds, berries, leaves, and grains, often raiding fields of peas and wheat. In fact, farmers once considered them pests, though ecologists today recognize their role in spreading seeds across landscapes. And here's another twist. Despite their size, wood pigeons are excellent flyers. They can travel long distances with strong, steady wing beats, and during migration, huge flocks sometimes darken the skies. In Greece, seeing them gather in autumn can feel like watching a moving gray cloud pass overhead. Culturally, pigeons have always carried meaning, symbols of peace, love, and persistence. The wood pigeon might not be as poetic as the dove, but in the Greek countryside, its steady presence is a reminder of resilience and abundance. So while it may look like just a pigeon, the wood pigeon is the heavyweight of Greece's bird life. Calm, powerful, and surprisingly majestic when you see it glide across the horizon. And now that we've finished our tour of the familiar everyday birds, let's shift gears and enter the wetlands and waterways, home to some of Greece's most mysterious and beautiful waterbirds. Up next, the elegant purple heron. What bird looks like it steps straight out of a watercolor painting, blending royal purple, chestnut, and gray into one elegant frame? That's the purple heron, a secretive waterbird that haunts the wetlands of Greece. Here's the stakes. Unlike its cousin, the gray heron, this bird is shy and prefers to stay hidden. Without its stealth and patience, it wouldn't survive in the dense reeds and marshes where predators lurk and prey is hard to catch. Picture the scene. Dawn on Lake Kirkini, one of Greece's bird-watching hotspots. Mist rises from the water, and suddenly a long, slender shape moves among the reeds. At first you think it's a shadow. Then, slowly, a heron steps out, its neck coiled like a spring, eyes laser-focused. In an instant, it strikes. Snap! A fish disappears into its dagger-like bill. Moments later, it melts back into the greenery, as if it was never there. Fun fact, purple herons are masters of camouflage. When threatened, they freeze, stretch their necks straight upward, and align their striped bodies with the reeds around them. To the untrained eye, they vanish completely. Birdwatchers in Greece often joke that you don't spot a purple heron, it spots you first. And here's another twist. Despite their size, purple herons are long-distance migrants. They breed in Greece during spring and summer, then head south to Africa for the winter, flying thousands of miles each year. Imagine a bird that spends one season fishing under Greek skies and the next skimming over the Nile. So while it may not be as bold as an eagle or as common as a pigeon, the purple heron embodies mystery, elegance, and survival by stealth. It's the quiet aristocrat of Greece's wetlands. But if the purple heron is the secretive artist, the next bird is the confident showman, a taller, grayer cousin that struts proudly across lakes and rivers. Up next, the majestic gray heron. What bird looks like a solemn old fisherman, standing frozen at the water's edge for hours, only to strike with lightning speed? That's the gray heron, one of Greece's most familiar and majestic wetland birds. Here's the stakes. Catching fish isn't easy. A single wrong move, and dinner is gone. Without its patience, precision, and sharp eyesight, the gray heron would go hungry. For a bird this big, nearly a meter tall, that's a serious problem. Picture the scene. You're walking along a riverbank in northern Greece. Suddenly, you spot a tall, ash-gray bird standing perfectly still in the shallows. Its long neck is tucked in an S-curve. Dagger bill pointed forward, eyes locked on the water below. Minutes pass. Then, strike. The heron snaps up a fish in one swift move, tosses it into the air, and gulps it down in one motion. Elegant, efficient, unstoppable. Fun fact, gray herons are not just expert fishers, they're opportunists. In Greece, they'll also raid rice fields, snatch frogs, and even grab the occasional small mammal. Some have even been seen loitering around fish farms, much to the frustration of local farmers. But in the ecosystem, they play a vital role as top wetland predators, keeping populations balanced. And here's another twist. Herons are surprisingly sociable. While they hunt alone, they often nest in colonies called heronries, sometimes with dozens of pairs in tall trees near lakes. In Greece, these noisy gatherings can sound like a prehistoric jungle, with loud croaks and wing beats filling the air. Culturally, the heron has long been a symbol of wisdom and patience, traits that fit perfectly with its still, statuesque presence. To Greek fishermen, spotting one often feels like looking in the mirror. Two hunters waiting for the water to provide. So while the gray heron may not be as flashy as the purple heron, it's the steady, reliable sentinel of Greece's rivers and lakes. Always waiting, always watching. And after these tall water birds, it's time to switch gears to something much faster. A tiny falcon that hovers in the air like a helicopter before striking its prey. Up next, the common kestrel. What bird can hover in midair like a tiny helicopter, eyes locked on the ground, before diving with deadly precision? That's the common kestrel, one of the most thrilling little raptors you'll find in Greece. Here's the stakes. For a bird of prey this small, missing a catch isn't just inconvenient, it's dangerous. Without a steady supply of rodents, insects, and small lizards, kestrels can quickly starve. They've had to evolve a remarkable hunting style to survive. Picture the scene. You're hiking near an open field in the Greek countryside. Suddenly, you notice a falcon hanging perfectly still against the sky, wings beating rapidly, tail fanned out. It seems suspended, almost like magic. Then, bam, it drops straight down, disappearing into the grass. A moment later, it rises again, clutching a mouse in its talons. Lunch is served. Fun fact, kestrels have extraordinary eyesight. They can detect ultraviolet light, which allows them to follow urine trails left by small mammals. To us, the field looks empty, but to a kestrel, it's a glowing roadmap to dinner. Combine that with their hovering ability, and they become some of the most efficient hunters in the sky. In Greece, kestrels thrive in open farmland, olive groves, and rocky hillsides. Farmers often welcome them, since their appetite for rodents helps protect crops. And despite being common in name, watching one hunt never feels ordinary. It's like seeing a master archer at work every single time. Here's another twist. Kestrels are also incredibly adaptable. You might spot them nesting in cliffs, old ruins, or even high buildings in Greek towns, proving that wild predators can live right alongside humans. So while it may not be as massive as an eagle or as fearsome as a hawk, the common kestrel amazes with its unique blend of agility, vision, and strategy. And if you thought this little falcon was impressive, just wait. Our next bird is one of the largest and most mysterious owls in the world, a nighttime predator with eyes that glow like fire. Up next, the Eurasian eagle owl. What bird stares at you with fiery orange eyes, spreads wings nearly 2 meters across, and hunts silently in the dead of night? That's the Eurasian eagle owl, one of the most powerful and awe-inspiring predators in Greece. Here's the stakes. In the darkness, survival belongs to those who can hear what others can't. Without its super hearing and ghost-like flight, the eagle owl wouldn't stand a chance of catching rabbits, hedgehogs, or even other birds under cover of night. Picture the scene. The rocky cliffs of Meteora under a full moon. The wind is still, the village below is quiet. Suddenly, a deep hoo-hoo rolls across the valley, low and resonant enough to send a shiver down your spine. Then from the shadows, a massive owl glides silently over the rocks, its wings making no sound at all. For a moment, it's like a phantom of the night sky. Fun fact, eagle owls are among the largest owls in the world, with females often heavier than the biggest hawks. Their ear tufts give them a fierce expression, but those aren't ears at all, just feathers used for camouflage and communication. The real ears are asymmetrical, allowing them to pinpoint the faintest rustle of prey in total darkness. And here's another twist. In Greece, the eagle owl has long been wrapped in myth and mystery. Some villagers once feared its call as an omen of death, while others believed it was the guardian of ruins, silently watching over sacred sites. Today, birdwatchers travel from around the world hoping to catch a glimpse of this elusive raptor. So whether perched like a shadow on a cliff or sweeping silently across a moonlit plain, the Eurasian eagle owl commands respect as one of Greece's most extraordinary birds. And after this dramatic giant of the night, it's time to end our journey with a true spectacle of the skies. A bird that doesn't amaze alone, but in breathtaking thousands. Up next, the European starling and its unforgettable murmurations. What bird looks plain on its own, just a dark, speckled body with a yellow beak, but becomes one of the most jaw-dropping sights in nature when it joins thousands of its kind? That's the European starling, and in Greece it delivers a finale that's nothing short of breathtaking. Here's the stakes. For a small bird, safety lies in numbers. Alone, a starling is vulnerable to hawks and falcons, but together they form one of nature's most astonishing defenses, the murmuration. Without this collective ballet, starlings would be easy pickings. Picture the scene, a chilly winter evening near a Greek wetland. The sun dips low, and suddenly the sky comes alive. Tens of thousands of starlings wheel and twist in perfect unison, forming living waves that ripple across the horizon. One moment, they're a rolling black cloud. The next, they're a giant shape shifting against the sunset. Farmers stop in their tracks, children gasp, and even seasoned birdwatchers fall silent. It's chaos and order, fear and beauty, all at once. Fun fact, scientists still don't fully understand how murmurations work. Each starling seems to track at least 7 of its neighbors, responding in milliseconds to changes in movement. The result is a massive flock that moves like a single organism, confusing predators and dazzling anyone lucky enough to witness it. And here's a twist. While starlings are sometimes considered pests for raiding crops, their murmurations have inspired artists, poets, and scientists for centuries. In Greece, seeing one is a reminder that even ordinary birds can create extraordinary spectacles when they come together. So while the European starling may not shine individually, as a collective it delivers one of the most unforgettable shows in the natural world. And with that, we've reached the end of our journey through Greece's bird life. From rainbow-colored bee-eaters to rock partridges, punk-haired hoopoes, and the mighty eagle owl. Which of these 20 strange species surprised you most? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to know. From the rainbow flash of the European bee-eater to the eerie midnight call of the Eurasian eagle owl, Greece has shown us a side of nature that's every bit as magical as its ancient temples and myths. These 20 strange species remind us that Greece isn't just the land of gods and heroes. It's also a living stage where birds play out their own dramas of survival, beauty, and mystery. Some are tiny and overlooked, like the wagtail wagging its tail across a village square. Others are mighty and unforgettable, like the eagle owl sweeping silently across a moonlit cliff. And then there are the starlings, ordinary birds that, together, create a spectacle worthy of legend. So here's the question for you. Which bird surprised you the most? Was it the butcherbird shrike, the punk rock hoopoe, or maybe the dazzling starling clouds at the very end? Drop your answer in the comments. I'd love to see what captured your imagination. And if you enjoyed this journey through Greece's wild wings, make sure to hit subscribe, because next time we're flying to another corner of the world to uncover more incredible birds you won't believe exist. Until then, keep your eyes on the skies. You never know what strange bird might cross your path.